How's it going? Today I'm going to talk to you how I assembled this platform bed frame. Now this platform bed frame has this nice headboard that you do have to build. It has these cushions here. It has two USB plugs on the top and it has one USB-C plug. You can also put LED strip lights around this, which makes it really cool. The first thing we need to talk about, which was the biggest issue I had with this, was the very first step. So you have to assemble this L piece, which is this backboard and this little shelf piece. And on the instructions, it shows little circles on the top here. However, those holes actually go towards the bottom. So if you do this upside down, you'll have to flip it around and it'll create a lot of problems later on. The other issue I had was it has an Allen wrench with a hex on one side and a Phillips screwdriver on the other. I would highly recommend to have a drill, or at the very least a long screwdriver and a longer Allen wrench to get this done. So the next step after you assemble the L correctly is going to be assembling this side pieces. Now these side pieces have these curved markers here and the back is straight. The picture, it's a little misleading on like where the things need to be. One rule of thumb though, you just want to make sure that this one piece that comes across is at the very bottom hole that's available, and then the one that's exactly like it is going up the next hole that's available. You also need to make sure that the tabs are aligned to the inside, the farthest back, because you're going to put these cushions here and they're going to seat inside that little space. Other than that, the top part, you just need to make sure that you have the piece on the back. So it's going to actually be for this shelf, and it's slightly offset, but it's going to be the same level just about, and that one's pretty easy to get. One mistake I did make other than the beginning was this piece here. You want to make sure these are slightly loose on the sides. You don't want to tighten them all the way down because you want these to fit in first. The issue I had with these was whenever you add these cushions together and measure it, it's actually longer than this bar right here. You're gonna have a gap on the sides just in order to fit this in. I wasn't able to fit this in with these all the way tight. I tried to tighten them a little bit later afterwards, but I was afraid of like popping these out or popping out the little screws on the back because they are just little wood screws. Now on the insides, so you have stability for this, there's gonna be these curved little brackets. The curved brackets are gonna screw into the underside of this shelf and then the back side of the cushions. Next, you do get to the cushions I was talking about. This was the most challenging part. What I did though as a trick, I shoved the Allen wrench with the Phillips and wood screw into the wood as deep as I could, and then I started turning. If you start turning without shoving it in, it's going to be extremely difficult. So that was the best way to get that assembled if you don't have any other tools. The next step was pretty easy. It was just setting up the plug. Now it has the USB-C on one side and then the USBs on the other. I made sure the USB-C was towards me because I sleep on this side of the bed and I want to make sure that I have the plug that I want closest to me. A little selfish, I know. Next, you're going to put this top shelf. This was very simple. It had 6 screws. It goes on the side, 4 in the back, and you just make sure to tighten them in place. I would recommend putting the back ones in first rather than putting the side pieces. I started with these side pieces just to kind of get it to hold, and then I went and did the back ones. After that's done, you assemble the footer. Now the footer was very simple. That piece actually slotted in perfectly. It has 6 of these smaller bolts that go into it. After that footer was assembled, you're going to start with the rails. Now the rails are pretty common. A lot of these bed frames have similar rail setups. They're just make sure that the slots have the bottom parts here so that whenever you put this piece on, that it's going to land in place and it's not going to be upside down or anything like that. Everything was labeled extremely well. They add extra bolts for every single one of the packages. The main thing with these rails is you have the T pieces, and you want to make sure that the T pieces have the correct size bolts. After that, you're going to put your first cross member. The first cross member goes in the middle here, and the middle leg has a foot that has a twist on it, so you can actually adjust that based on how your floor is leveled, and then you just bolt it down in place. After that one's bolted down, you need to add the stringer that goes across the middle, that support beam, and then you're going to put the 2 on the ends. So the 2 on the ends, the one in the middle, they both are bolted down in similar fashion. So it's pretty much just like repeating the process and then assembling your T in the middle with those bolts as well. Then you have to assemble that main stringer in the middle all the way to the footer, and that's just with 2 small bolts, so that was pretty simple. You have these foam pieces that you put down. They're little strips just to help with the sound so that you're not clinking whenever you're laying on your mattress. Those foam strips have an adhesive on the back side. You just take that off, make sure it's lined up, and press it down. Then you just have to put your metal slats in. The metal slats are really easy. There's no locking in place, it just sets on it. Then after you get your slats put in, it does have these little oval brackets. Now that bracket is just to make sure your bed snuggles in nicely, and this one is the queen size. So the last step is just assembling the LED lights. They have these little plastic pieces that have little clips. You want them to go upwards along the rail on the far side of where I'm at right now. And you're gonna put the shorter strip along the footer. They actually might be the same size, but one of the strips go along the footer, it goes on up, and then the other one goes on the top shelf. It has a double-sided adhesive, and you pull off the backer strip, make sure they're somewhat even, and then you want to plug it in. So you want to make sure there is a plug on this side of the bed in order to use the lights. Whenever I tried them out, it started flashing extremely fast. There's some speeds you can dial down for the strobe effect. There's a couple different modes for like pulsating. And then what I like most is just changing the different solid colors. I think the red looks really good. I think the blues look really good. It's a pretty nice feature to add to a bed frame. Overall, I would consider this a pretty solid bed frame.